Tantra magic. Uh, I'm gonna have to keep it PG here because a lot of people wanted to talk about uh, again Tantra magic, aka what they're calling sex magic or old magic. I have to keep it. I'm gonna keep it as PG as I can here. But we're gonna talk about that because we covered it in our community, and I have had maybe 2 or 3 people came in and asked me about, "Are we gonna cover that?" Because we've covered so many things extensively. And so we're coming here and we're gonna talk about Tantra magic, uh, sex magic. The name of the book that we covered was Sacred Sex, but that book only scratched the surface on what it really is. And this is one of my favorite topics, so I wanted to come in here and talk about this because when we talk about that, we have to talk about the divine feminine and where it really comes from, and how you know how it is presented to us today, and what we're looking at today are elements of it, but it has been tainted. That's the best word I'm going to put in there today. It has been tainted. So if you want to know more about, again, about Tantra magic, aka sex magic, you're in the right place. We're going to cover it extensively. And they have talked a little bit about it on, because I did my research on this before I talk about this, let me see who else has talked about it. So, I kind of scoured around TikTok and I saw the subject being talked about. Then I scoured a little bit around YouTube and see if it was talked about. But we're going to be able to talk about fully today. And hopefully, if you were in our community, you saw me break that down with the visuals. You got visuals of that showing you how that look when you go to the top of the climax, and how you are in an alternate, we are actually going to an alternate reality. It is easy to tap into, uh, what I want to say. I think the alternate reality is the best term for it. Okay, it's easy for us to tap into that magic again because that's dealing with feelings, a high intense feeling. And so with that energy, you can do so much with that energy if you know what you're doing. Is this for everybody? No, I don't think this is for everybody. I do recommend it for people that are in the adult entertainment industry. Maybe you're a dancer where and you have to use this in a way that empower you and take your power back. I think this tantra magic or sex magic is the best magic to incorporate if you're going in that field. No judgment here. Hoodoo has no judgment here. A lot of the products that a lot of practitioners make, they can be customized just for that because our ancestors had, again, we had women working in those fields and had to be um, very clever and claim back their power in the face of patriarchy. So let me dive in here today because this is juicy. I wanted to talk about it. So if you want to know about this subject, I'm going to dive in here deep. You're probably going to be here for a minute because I'm going to get on my nerdy soapbox for a minute and I'm going to talk about this. So when we talk about sex magic, we got to talk about Pascal Randolph. He introduced it to the occult. Pascal Randolph, again, he's not, and they're starting to give him recognition for contributing a lot of magical techniques and rituals to the occult. He was a man of color, okay? And he did not create it. A lot of people like to say he created. No, 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 no. Because when I was reading about him, I was like, he did not create that. A woman taught him that, okay? And it's going to make sense as we go on. And of course, if you're in our community, I broke this all the way down. I like the visuals I gave you guys because you got a chance to really see how that looked in a magical sense. I was able to give you the visual of that, and I hope that helped you in there. So you got the juicy stuff. Okay. So Pascal Beverly Randolph was a 19th century American occultist, spiritualist, a Black American uh, occultist, spiritualist, healer, and Rosicrucian who is widely credited as the earliest Western teacher of practical sex magic. His work predated influence later occultists like Aleister Crowley and others in the Hermetic esoteric traditions. So, and you see him too introduce so many other magical techniques when it came to um, spirituality and spiritualism. He introduced so much to the occult, and a lot of people talk about Aleister Crowley, but you can't talk about Aleister Crowley or Madame Blavatsky without talking about Pascal Randolph. Okay, he was a black man and occultist. Like I told you, we had a lot of ancestors that went into that Freemasonry thing. You know how I feel about that. Sex magic is a way of changing the material world through the use of sexual energy, which is cultivated in the physical and etheric body, and channeled for a sacred desire, purpose, or intention. It is a path of erotic as a means of changing reality. This can be done solo or with a partner or with multiple partners. Okay, so if you go through that book, it tells you that it gives you a variety of rituals that you can do with yourself or with a partner, or you want to open that up more. Okay, this was something that was understood in the ancient world because they knew how to use Tantra magic. You can see that too in Asia when they talked about the Kuma Sutra. Sex magic is focused inward because the body becomes a wand or the magical instrument that directs the will of the individual into the cosmos for a manifestation. It is only after your focus has gone inward to circulate energy to being present in pleasure and sensation to connecting with the self or beloved that you can turn your energy outward to cause real change. Now, in the book, because I think um I conjure and know thyself. You actually got the book that was written by Pascal Randolph, and in the book, some of the rituals that he put up in there, that he presents there, I think it gave too much room for corruption in the way he approached it. Okay, that was just my opinion. Some of the rituals, it made it, the way he presented it, I could see how the occult went in and corrupted a beautiful practice that was developed by women. This is going to make sense as I move on. Okay, I love breaking this down. I think this is my second time having this lecture. Okay, I love breaking this down. This is my thing. I even wrote a book about all this stuff. Okay, one of the reasons that sex magic is so powerful is because of potency, again, of the climax. I'm trying to be PG here. Okay. The climax opens the gateway to the numinous. You enter another reality, another feeling. Now, a lot of people feel the climax in the sacral extra, in the genital section. But the goal is, now what I've read about Tantra, the goal is to push that energy up so you can experience it in your mind. And they said that is the most, you know, I've heard that is the goal. That is the ultimate type of climax that you can f- experience in Tantra magic when you experience it in the head and not in the genitalia or sacral area. How do you feel about Freemasons? I'll talk about that later. Yeah, that it can be pushed, but it takes focus and practice to experience in the head. Now, when they say when you can open that up, you open up again the crown chakra, and it's like a heavenly state. It's something that the same way you would feel down there, you feel it in the mind. You feel that climax that goes in the mind, and it is possible to do. But again, it takes an experienced practitioner to do that, and we have many of ancient mothers who were able to do that. At the moment of the climax, the rational mind becomes non existent, as if the gateway has opened to pure consciousness. It is this moment, when paired with intentions or desire, that makes sex magic so powerful. Okay, so you can see sex magic too. You can see it in hoodoo. Okay, so we had the, again, because we have different elements of it. We're very knowledgeable of how to use fluids and things like that in our workings. We were very knowledgeable of that. So it's typically embedded in applied forms of the spiritual labor, including love work, fertility rites, reconciliation, domination, binding, protection. Sexual X becomes an operative when combined with focused intention, temporal awareness, and strategic use of personal concerns. Bodily substances are not treated symbolically, but as a material efficacious links to individual spirit. So again, we use personal belongings a lot when it comes to hoodoo. However, you can even get more creative with this when it comes to the X, and it's different workings in there that we have shared in our community to show you how, to inform you how we use um, sex magic in a form in hoodoo. So we break that all down for you. So hopefully, if you read that whole article, you got those gems and you noted that. Okay. Sexuality is understood as a conduit of personal power and spirit, and love workers often make use of what are called personal concerns, items that carry essence, will, or life force of an individual. The foundational belief is that what comes from the body carries person spirit with it. Okay. The sexual contact, therefore, creates some of the strongest possible spiritual links between people. That's why love spells and things like that, uh, again, being careful with this kind of work, that's why they work so well. And you have to be so careful with them because you're tilting the line of obsession, of insanity. Okay, so you want to be very careful about how you're dealing, even though this is a positive energy. If the person is not balanced and they do it for selfish reason, it can turn on you. That's why I do not recommend love spells. Now, if you want to do a domination, you want to do attraction, I've heard too many people's, and I've had my own experience with. You say you want them to love you, you know. Are you asking because you're gonna get you a stalker on your hands? That's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a stalker on your hands. And when you're done, they're not gonna be done. Okay? So think about that. And the only reason why our great mothers was using love spells, is because they didn't have any rights and they were trying to pin down their provider. Yeah, they're meant to keep a family together. I agree. So that's why our mothers was using them. That's why they was going to workers and things like that, because their livelihood depended on the man. Because women didn't have many rights, if any at all. Who do elders consistently emphasize discernment and consequences? Sexual magic was understood to bind spirits, not just emotions. Improper or careless work could result in obsession, stagnation, or spiritual entanglement. Cleansing practices, baths, prayers, psalms, floor washes were used to maintain balance and prevent unwanted attachments. Okay, I heard a young lady said on here, I thought that was a great thing. She schooled me on this. She said, before I even think about sharing a bed with the man, we got to be there 3 months, and he has to take these spiritual baths. I have to make sure he is totally clear before I share my energy with him, because she became a spiritually aware. And I agree with that, because you're opening yourself up for an attachment when you are engaging in that and you climax. Whatever he has in him or whatever she has in her, it's going to be exchanged between the two. It's going to be exchanged. Okay? If you sleep with that man or woman, you get up feeling depressed and sad and you having all these negative thoughts, that's those energies that was in them, attached to them, that are now, you are now carrying. That's why for us women, sometimes when our heart has been broken, it takes us a while to heal. Sometimes months, sometimes years, depending on what happened. Because we got to dispel all that other energy that we experience in their relationship. Not only that, because we're receptive, we're more of a receiver. We have picked up a lot of this man's crap, and it will mess with your. That's why a lot, if you're in the wrong relationship, it would diminish your mental health because of these spirits. This is real. And then everybody want to have these casual hookups and things like that. Do you really want to do that? And now we have some of these men that are straight warlocks that are drawing energy. You have some women like that too. They're sucking energy out of you. And they're purposely doing it. I told you about the girl, she was dating this guy, and she didn't know why she was having these bubbly feelings for this guy. He wasn't, she couldn't understand it because he wasn't, you know, all that. That's the only word I can come up with. She couldn't understand it. And then one day she said he went to the bathroom, and some kind of way she was able to peep in on him, and he was working her. He was leaving tricks on her toilet. So when she sat on it, it came in contact with her. She said she didn't do anything. She didn't say anything. She was glad she peeped in on him, and she started working him right back. And he left. He went on left. Okay. But she said he was working her, and she worked him right on back when she found out. Okay, so you get people like this, and you think they don't know. Watch people. Take your time with people. Now more than ever, you got a multitude, thousands, if not millions, practicing magic. And not a lot of them are healed. They just doing things that they see here that people are showing them. They don't know what type of spirit they're working with. They don't have any awareness of themselves. They just want what they want. Okay? So you have to be careful out there. Take your time and get to know some people, because you'll be surprised who working you, or have you been worked. So question your feelings and your thoughts. And this young lady was able to question her time snapping army, was able to question her thoughts and feelings. And so she was able to catch him in the act. Nothing but the ancestors, okay? Guided her to peep in on him to see what he was doing. Okay, so now we're going to go deeper on this because we want to know where it really comes from. Because we already know that Pascal Randolph, hey, he introduced it. He introduced it to the occult, and I really don't like that he did that. When I saw that, when the ancestors was showing me that, I said I don't like he did that, because that wasn't his to share. That wasn't his rights. These are priestess rights. Yes, this belonged to the priestess. The whole act itself is divine feminine. Now I heard Bobby Hemmett break this down, but the whole act itself is divine feminine. I'm going to break this down for you. And for TikTok, YouTube, this for educational purposes only. I'm going to show you this. This will be my second time, I think, you're talking about it. And of course, in our community, you had a whole breakdown of this, because I'm nerd. I had to get on my soapbox and start breaking it down and showing it to you. Okay, in the ancient world, sexuality and spirituality were not separate domains, but expressions of the same sacred cosmology. You see how they try to act all dignified today and try to keep that sacred, but then you got all this crazy stuff going on in church, all this deviant behavior that's going on. Okay, because y'all try to separate the two when it's one and the same. It's about creating, co-creating. That's what that's about. But see, y'all done turned that into something ugly, and the patriarchs did that. And this is how it got tainted, and this is how it got ugly. It's gonna make sense as we go on with this. Oh yeah, it's gonna get juicy. You understand me? Sexuality was understood as a divine technology, as a means through which humans commune with the gods, renew fertility in the land, assess altered states, and maintain cosmic order. This understanding predates pre-archical monotheism, is rooted in the goddess-centered religious systems, in which the feminine principle was recognized as the generative force of creation itself. The later separation of sex from spirit is not ancient wisdom, but theological revision. So when this was going on, we did have our own temples, because you'll see them mentioned in the Bible as well. Those temples, those sacred temples, when they talking about Ashra, and they talking about how Solomon had all these women and they had their own gods, and he bowed down to them as he should, because he wouldn't have had any recognition behind them. He had to learn their rights because they are the one who had all the spiritual technology. And so when you see these men with these women, even Solomon, all of them, they're coming in contact with these women. Why? Because they had the spiritual wisdom. They didn't have that. Matter of fact, these men wouldn't have not even been looked at, not unless they came in contact with these women. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Solomon, David. I can go on and on. They wouldn't have learned any of this knowledge. Moses too. These are, again, spiritual systems that belong to women, that men had to sit at the feet of women and learn. I'm going to keep it open from you. I know you don't. I can show you this when we go into Kabbalah too, because in Kabbalah, let's go get on them patriarchs again. You trying to get where? To the Shekinah glory, to the Sophia, the divine feminine. That's what you trying to get. That is the major God in Kabbalah. You go check it out for yourself. Let's stop shucking and jiving here. Ain't no man God. You said that in Kabbalah because y'all trying to reach the high spiritual ascension, and who's there? The divine feminine. Ain't no man up there. You understand me? I break that down to you. They broke that down and reinvented Kabbalah and watered it down for their religion, because that pathway, spiritual system or technology was created by women. We did a whole lecture of this when you see the Egyptian tree of life, and you see that it comes from Zohar, and it goes on and on. And where does Zohar get it from? Divine feminine. Okay, that whole act, you don't know what feel good until a woman show you what feels good on her. She's the director of that, not no man. That's why you see a lot of men don't like it. They say they don't like experienced women, but yet they don't like experienced promiscuous women. But you can't. A lot of them can't stay out these women bed. It ain't because they don't know what they're doing. It's because they know exactly what they're doing. And the reason most of them, I'm saying not all of them, most of them don't want you to have what they call many bodies, is because they want to be able to do anything with you because you don't have any experience. So that leads them to do anything they want to do for you. If you don't know anything, you don't know. So he could just do anything. But with an experienced person, he can't do that. Okay? He can't do that. You have to be included in the act. But when he says, I don't like when you have a lot of you're inexperienced, he can do anything. And you don't get a chance to know your body. But they say, and then they'll lie and say, I don't like these inexperienced, I don't like these experienced promiscuous women. And then they'll pay all these money just to be one. I go through this when we talk about what is her name? Uh, Karen, what is that her name? Karen Stephan. They call her Superhead. You best believe that she gets paid. They talk that mess, but they gonna lay down that cheddar, all that cabbage. They're gonna put it down in front of her. Oh, they're gonna pay her. Cause she not because she don't know what she doing, she know exactly what she doing. And they know they ain't gonna waste their money because they know they're gonna get good service. You like to talk about these women, but it was a day y'all couldn't stay out. You could not stay out the brothels, which y'all call brothels. You couldn't stay out the sacred temples. And y'all was mad about that. A lot of men was mad about that. Okay? They were upset about that. How the South African nightmare? They were very upset about that. They wanted to stamp that out because women, again, it was set up like this for centuries. Even in ancient Egypt, you'll see these rites being in ancient Egypt. You're going to see them across the board among all cultures. Because why? There was a matriarch empire queendom. And they were not, a lot of people say this is a separate culture. No, they were all combined together because everything was divine feminine. Good evening. Thank you for sharing this. You're welcome. Okay, so let's go into deeper this. Let me get out of my soapbox. Let me stick to my notes because you guys know I can get heated about this. I get excited when I talk about the divine feminine and the great mother, uh, and some of the missing components in these religions or some of these spiritual practices, because you can still see some of this misogyny in some of the ATRs and some people, spiritual systems. And I show you this too when we go through some of our materials. I let you know, hey, I'm gonna decolonize this and I'm gonna take the misogyny out of it. That's why I do a lot of lectures on this, so I can take the water down out of it, so you can get the real deal. Okay, that's why I love having these discussions. Thank you, Elaine Lockhart. Thank you, sweetie. Okay, the temples associated with sacred sexuality are not absent from the Bible. They're right there in the Bible, as is as if often assumed. On the contrary, they are referenced repeatedly in your Bible, though almost always through the lens of condemnation, because now they gave them these names, and this a name made up name. Calling them demoralizing name. Whore, or the P word. I don't want to get shut down here. But you know what the P word is. The 403 or 304 or whatever they call it now. Okay? Spicy workers. They want to dumb it down to that because this is when it got tainted, when men wanted to use it for their own preferences. They wanted to separate that from spirituality when that's the same. And that's why you got a lot of this stuff that's going on in this church now, because you didn't have a lot of that deviant behavior because people understood the act. They wasn't using it for no crazy gratification and power. But men started to use that in the wrong way when they were being taught this. That's why you see all that stuff happening now with the PDF people. Okay, when a lot of this stuff going on. Now you got all this PDF stuff because they took that out of there. They suppressed that. That's what you have when that happens. When you get that, they get that in the wrong hands. It was never meant to be masculine. Now you got these masculine men pushing up on straight men. You got some of these, feminine men pushing. It just got crazy. That's what happens when the Tantra got corrupted. And now you have these men that took something that was divine feminine and tainted it with a lot of that stuff. I hope I'm making sense to you. Am I making sense to you? Are you putting some puzzles together? Because you can see it's plain as day. You took something very spiritual, very sacred, and turned it into graphic images and all this stuff. When you had a temple that you can go to and connect with the divine feminine and help you in your ascension work. No, that's not what you wanted. You wanted to get off on hurting folks while you do it and all this sort of stuff. This is when the perversion happens, when they take that out and separate that and convince women there's something wrong with them, that that's wrong. Now you couldn't take all that power because you know if you interface with that, you had to be right. You had to be right, so you had to corrupt that and make that ugly. Let me move on, honey. On the contrary, they reference repeatedly, though almost always through the lens of condemnation. The Hebrew Bible refers to the institution using the terms Kodesh. Kodesh was the feminine women. Okay, these were the priestess that, they mastered the art of Tantra. They knew exactly what they were doing. Most of these women, they would have been what you call siren singers, vocalists, musicians, where you would see like Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, Aretha Franklin, all these Beyonce, all these stars, they would have been in these temples, they would have been singing, they would have been high priestess and taught the art of tantra. And men from all over the world would have been coming there to have rituals and rites with these women. It's being misdirected now. All this money went into the temples, and most of these women, they owned a lot of land because their ancestor mothers again were the first people who cultivated the land. They had a deep relationship with the land, and they would have learned these rites because a lot of them formed these fertility rites on the land to ensure good crops would grow. This comes right from the divine feminine. Okay, and you're hearing it. They calling in the Bible Kodesh, and then they had the masculine men who was a part of the temple too that learned the art of tantra. They were called Kodesh, and you'll see them too. Because I was under the understanding too, when you're seeing these people called eunuchs, I thought eunuch to me meant that you were castrated. That's what I thought that meant. But no, that's not what that meant. That meant that men, these are priests that were trained in the art of Tantra in the Kodesh temples. And you had some women and some men that would go to these temples because they wanted to be able to pleasure their loved ones before marriage. And they would go there and be taught the touch and Tantra before they would get married. That makes sense. That makes sense. Now you got to remember these temples was all over. That's why when they say Solomon, he had all these women, yeah, because all of them was trained in this. And yeah, he had to bow down to if your God is so powerful or whatever, why you keep bowing down to them? Because you knew that's where that power was. He could not, you know, again, who's saying this in this Bible? Because Asherah has been there. You seeing Asherah in there being mentioned a lot of times. They're letting you know in that Bible they're taking over a matriarch kingdom. Who they enslaving women and children. They can have as many wives as they want to. This is what's happening during that time. There's a takeover going on in that Bible. They got you thinking that they taking over, that they hurting Christians and stuff like that. No, they're hurting women and children. Let's be clear. And if they mention a woman in that Bible, it's because they have no other choice. Because these men doesn't hold any spiritual authority without mentioning these women. Go back and read. They don't want to. They don't want to mention that. You have them in the beginning of the Bible having these children, and Gomer begot this man, and this man begot this man, without mentioning a woman. And you know darn well they're not having these kids, these men on their own. They have no choice but to mention it. Okay, they have to mention these women because without, and then you find out that Sarah was a priestess. that married Abraham, she was a priestess. Hagar was an Egyptian priestess. You go on and on. They're marrying all these women, though they may be from, they may be a Moabite, whatever they may be. But one thing that all the things they have in connection is all of them were priestess. They were skilled in the spiritual arts because that type of knowledge belonged to women and women only. Okay, hi Money Wheel, hi Golden Illumination. Welcome our TikTok family and YouTube family. Okay, that's what's going on there. I love, they keep that out of there. These men are, look what's going on in this Bible. Woman voice don't have no weight. If a man want to accuse a woman of lying or whatever, she can be unalived in that Bible. You're seeing it for yourself. So who is the attack on? Who is they unaliving in that Bible? And then they like tell you, oh, if the attack was on Christians, that is a lie. You did not one Christian get unalived there. So let's stop the lying. Okay, let's stop the lying. You the one over here unaliving everybody else, and then gonna say you was being, no, you wasn't. And you got the man making that same excuse to go over there and hurt some other folks. Ain't nobody. Look, think about that. That don't even make sense. Okay. That don't even make sense. That's what they was doing in there. They ain't gonna let you know that was a takeover. And if you're not careful, women, they're doing it again over there where you are. That's what's happening there. That's why they're gonna outlaw, your wellness. They don't want no abortion going on. They don't want that going on. They want complete control over your body. This is what this is about. You think it's not about you, but it's directly about you. It's always been about you, woman. It's always been about you. If you want to shut it down, you can. You can do that. You can shut that whole country down. A woman can shut any country down. Women can shut any country down anytime she feel like it. All she gotta do is close them legs. That's it. She can shut it down. Tell them you ain't dealing with them. No, that you want to get some power back. Shut it down. You'll see who got the power. Okay, they didn't want that, and women have did this before to them. Okay, didn't have to fight them. All you gotta do is shut it down. Okay, that's what you want. Then you don't want this. You made your choice. We're done. Okay, because everything you are, it comes from us. So we're gonna go ahead and shut that down. Women have always had the power, but they didn't convince you that you're weak and all that sort of stuff. When women was the first protector. If it wasn't for your mama protecting you, you wouldn't be here. So what are you talking about? Have you seen a mama bear? Have you seen a mama animal? If somebody trying to mess with her child, you must be out your mind. Them the most fierce hunters and protectors I've ever seen. You don't want to get in the way between a woman and her child. You don't even want to do it. They will shut you down. If she ain't no warrior, she gonna become one that day. Okay, so to get that out your mind. I got you thinking you weak and all that stuff now. Mm-mm. You ain't none of that. Okay, you was the first one. You his first protector, his first God. Let's get that right now. When you're looking, especially when you're looking at a woman of color, you're looking at God in the flesh. I know you don't believe that, but that's the fact, Jack. Okay, you looking at God in the flesh, and this is what's going on. You still got them popes down over there. They gonna bow down to that Black Mary. They ain't bound down to no Jesus behind no closed door. They're gonna bow down to that Black Mary. Okay, you got some people in that Catholic Church. They don't pray to nobody but Mary. They don't care what nobody say. They praying to me. It makes sense to me because why you gonna pray to the woman, pray to the child, and you ain't praying to the woman who gave birth. It seemed like she the origin of everything. And you done made that about that man. And really, this is about this woman. Because God touched her. Make that make sense? She's the Holy Grail. She's the only one can give birth without, without help. You understand me? They got this all backwards, and I know some of you men that make you mad, but you need to wake up because I'm telling you, don't get this right. And Bobby Hemmy told you, you're gonna be maggots. You're gonna be left behind. You will be crushed. It's happening now. The great mother is moving through a lot of us now because we're not even interested in a lot of these relationships with you because you know, I don't know what happened to you. Something wrong with you. You need to get somewhere and sit down and heal because you show doing raggedy stuff out here at a high number, at high rates. You raggedy, and you need to get some. And you have a lot of you, and not all of you. A lot of you have even infiltrated because you know us women are trying to heal, and we have become more spiritual. You have infiltrated those spaces and bought in lower attachments, and now you're wreaking havoc even in the spiritual spaces. Some of you. You using this as a front to coat the raggedy stuff you got going on. Some of you, not all of you. Okay? Both derive from the root meaning holy. That's what Kadesh mean, holy. But see, they didn't turn that into, oh no, she ain't nothing but a spicy worker. She ain't nothing but a holy. And even even in the book, they stated that like that. I said that looks raggedy. Why would you state that like that? You're still keeping these misogynistic terms on something so holy and beautiful. Y'all done turned that into something raggedy and use it to power because you got an outverted vagina. Because that's what you got. Or extended clitoris. That's all it is. You still a woman. You wouldn't even have that phallic if it wasn't from us. If it weren't for us. You couldn't even enjoy the act if it was, because you don't know what feel good. You don't know what feel good. We have to tell you what feel good right there. Stay there. Do this, do that. That's really how you should be trained. But you don't want to be trained like that. You're gonna want to. A lot of you like to watch this crazy stuff, these images and stuff, and then like the practices on people, and you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. You don't. You be lucky if you get your older woman or older partner. Maybe she can teach you. But you don't know. Some of you don't know. You don't know what you're doing. And then you wondering why a lot of these women are walking away from you. It's because you don't know what you're doing. And it's sometimes it ain't so much about sizes, but you don't know what to do with what you got. But you think you know what you're doing and you don't. Okay? And really, if you would sit there with your woman and ask her what she liked, you'll probably learn something and enjoy it more. Because we know. Y'all like to get in this poly stuff. No, 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 no. You can't even satisfy one woman. Right. Why you want three or four? Why? Why would you want three or four? You can't even satisfy one right. You're thinking about your own gratification, but it used to be a time when the goal was to make the woman uh to satisfy her. That was the goal. Because if you satisfy her, you are satisfying God. If you're pleasuring her, you are pleasuring God. The better she feel, the better God feels. The more she's uplifted, the more blessings and abundance flow. Now, what's he break this down in his book. I'm not making this up. Pascal Randolph mentions this in his book. He tells them, hey, do not corrupt this because all the blessings flow through her. The better you are to her, the more nurturing and loving you are to her, the better your magic gonna be. The better your abundance and money flow is going to be. He states that in the book. The woman is again the receptor, and she's doing the channeling. And what you see in this Tantra too, notice when you look at Tantra, you have the woman sitting across the man, on top of the man. Why? Because she channels the energy. Remember when Eve said, why he's on top of me? I'm older than him. Because she knew that she channels the energy, that she was receptive. So I'm not going to put him on top of me. How will he be on top of me? Okay, I think that Lilith said that. Lilith said, she said, I'm not going to do that because she knew, again, it came from her. She was the channeler. You'll see in Tantra that is the most popular position is for the woman to be on because she know what she's doing. If you see my example of that, you got a good visual of that in our community because I show you a good visual of that so you can see exactly what goes on. What's the name of the book? The name of the book is called Sacred Sex. And then the name of Pascal Randolph book is called Sex Magic. Yeah, they flipped everything around. It's the woman that knows how to do that. It's the woman that knows how to do that. That was her job. Now this was all over men they were having, but you see that they have turned this into and this was keeping them messed up. And I think this is why Pascal Randolph introduced this to the occult because they were not able. They found, and I'm sure a lot of these men found they could not reach that what I want to call it, ecstasy, that ascension of ecstasy in their spiritual practice. They wasn't getting the flow that they wanted because y'all done bastardized a spiritual practice that belonged to women and you messed it up. Okay? And so Pascal Randolph, and quite naturally, what Pascal Randolph says is they lost their knowledge. And I think they lost that knowledge when they start unaliving all of our other sister witches, because we all share this knowledge. Women had this knowledge. Forget what they're telling you. We didn't have it wasn't no color thing because we all knew we came from the same mother. We knew this. What empowered us? We just set up spiritual practices to keep that connection going on, no matter how that connection look. That's why you'll see a lot of these religions that have a lot of universal truth. Why? Because they come from the same mother, from different clans. They all knew they came back to the great mother. They knew this. Men like tell you, oh, it's different religion. No, it's the same thing. Stop playing. That's why you see them pyramids. You'll see this agriculture everywhere because women was running the world. So let's just cut it out. Wasn't about no man. So let's stop it with the lies. Okay. And I think the sooner they admit that, the better off it's gonna be. And women, we need to know this because they're keeping this away from you. Okay, they don't want you to know your power, but they don't want you to know if you shut your legs down, you can shut down this whole planet. You can rock this whole thing out if you wanted to. And you're gonna have the divine standing with you the whole time. This whole planet gonna shift when you make a move. You best believe that because you're connected with it. You're the only being that's cosmic genetically linked to the cosmos. You have a moon cycle. Men don't have that. Okay, they can connect themselves with the sun all they want to, but sun, you came from us. You don't got no moon cycle. You don't have no cosmogenetic link to this. You don't have that at all. You don't have no cramps. You don't You don't have no issue coming from you or nothing like that. So why would you think that you are dominant, more dominant than women? You have no link to this, because if you did, you wouldn't be trying to blow up stuff. Look at the men over there trying to blow up stuff now. Ain't nowhere in the world that you come from here, you connected to this planet, and you want to push a button. Now come on now, let's be real. You who want to even make some stuff like that? We gonna have to do it, Elaine Lockhart. We did it before. Gonna have to do it again. Gonna have to do it again. You have to choke, because they don't believe fat meat is greasy. They don't believe that fire is hot. You gonna have to teach them that the fire. You know they're hard headed. Okay, you have to show them. That's what it's gonna take. But I don't think, they didn't made a lot of us codependent, made us feel like we can't live without them, or made us look like our life is not gonna be full without them. A lot of us starting to wake up from that. You really gonna have to shut them down for a minute till they come to their senses. And it's not even just the young one; it's the old ones that corrupted the young ones. They more corrupted than anything. The old ones really don't want your sons around them, because as soon as they get around them, they get the virus, the crazy virus, like some of these men. They don't believe that fat meat is greasy. Another teacher, they don't believe that. You have to show them fat meat is greasy. You sure do. That's how some of them learn. They learn the hard way. When you take the nookie away, and take that sugar ball away, he can't put his hand in the cookie jar no more. And you will see. They did a question. They asked these men, would you want to live in the world without women? What did those men say? They said, no, we don't want to stay in the world. Well, I be dog. You don't want to stay in the world without women. Ain't that something? Ain't that something? Y'all want to live around each other, but y'all love each other. You're lovers of each other. But you don't want to live on a planet by yourself. You keep that up, that's where you're going to be. Because that's where the great mother, that's where you headed. That's where you headed with that. And you're going to bow, whether you want to or not. You're going to bow down to the divine feminine. I don't care what you say. You going to do it. Willingly or unwillingly. Because nature going to force you to do it. We ain't got to make you do it. Nature is going to do it. She going to do it herself. She going to force you to your knees because you don't know what you're doing. Manly P. Hall talked about this. You got another occultist talked about this. He talked about when this shift was to happen. And I was listening to his lecture on it. And I'm gonna tell you something now. And a lot of you might get mad at me, but I don't care if you get mad at me. It's the truth. You can't share power with somebody who is inferior. He is not to be. You can't share power with him. Manly P. Hall talking about share power. No, we've tried it. No. I know you don't want to hear that. No, 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 no. The power belongs to women and children, not men. You see it in your Bible. They tell you in that Bible. Go look at that Bible. Who they talking about? Man, 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 man. They're distinct when they're talking about a woman. Man, who is that for? Man, that's for your morality and for your spiritual growth. You wrote that for you. By you, for you. You stole a lot of our prophecies and put them in there. And you will see in that Bible too what that Bible say. All men are liars. I didn't say it. They telling you what the problem is the whole time, and they're about man, 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 man. It's a fact, Jack. Okay. I'm not trying to preach no hate. I'm telling you, you go look at the statistical numbers. You go see who's doing what. Who's over there pushing buttons, and we got this PDF file, Epstein case, and it's all kinds of stuff. Who's in the middle of it? Who's orchestrating this? I don't care if they red, black, orange, yellow. It's gonna be the same thing with these folks, okay? These men ideologies. You need to get somewhere and sit down. You had your turn. You already showed that you were incapable of running a planet. You can't even run a house. Why would you think that you can run a country or anything else? Why would you think that? It's the craziest thing to me. You want women to run whole houses that do that very well, and then you want a man that don't even run a house, don't have no relationship with his children or anything to run a country? And then you mad when he don't get it right? This got to make sense, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not, and this ain't man bashing. It's the facts of the matter. It's the nature. It's the nature of the matter. Look at what's going on here. That's why everything upside down now. Okay. And these were holy temples, and these men have convinced these women that what they were doing was wrong. Okay. The words were later mistranslated or deliberately reframed. And I'm gonna say this one time, TikTok and YouTube. It was reframed to prostitute, a made up name to demoralize something so beautiful into something raggedy and ugly. This was a common practice. So when you look at a lot of people say, oh, it's racism. Before there was even a race war, we ain't even finished with the gender war. We still in that. It was sexism before it was racism. Sexism was a practice for the racism. You understand what I'm saying here? First time they brainwash somebody, use that Bible to brainwash somebody, or practice any type of ism, it was towards the woman. It was towards you. When they knew the brainwashing work on you, hey, we can use this on other people. But the first time they used that Bible, it was on the woman. You best believe that. They were conquering all these little small tribes and stuff. And when they conquer them, what they do? They take in the children and the women for their wives as concubines. Forced they say some of these women you think they were married in the Bible were women. Some of these were children. They were not adults. Go talk to your grandma. Go talk to your great grandma. Some of them was being married at 13, 14, 15 years old. They weren't even adults. And some of these men was 20, 30, and 40 years old. This was the common practice between, especially this is a common practice on up into the 70s, 80s. This was normal practice. They took them and made them their concubine and then forced them to change their culture. Yep. And this is why I don't think men, when I hear men talking about history and women, men, you need to be quiet. You don't give birth to children, so just be quiet. Stop talking about humanity. Stop talking about women's story. You don't know our story. You're not going to tell it right. And every time you're telling it from a place of ego to boost up your, yourself. Not your fault. Somebody told you you was the center of the world and you're not. And that's hard for some of them to unpack. But that's a part of the healing that we need to do as well. Okay? And so again, they were calling them this derogatory name. The blackballing and the orchestrating has started with them because they're trying to stomp this out. These men are trying to gain the spiritual power and the land and all of that. And so you'll see a lot of those lands to change hands. Especially when you look at the Pope and the Vatican, that land belonged to these women. Yeah, the Vatican belonged to women. They're trying and who owned a lot of the now they're saying the Vatican owned a lot of lands too, but they only owned those lands because they took over the sacerdotal seat from the high priestess, which would have been a black woman. They had a lot of land, and that's what men wanted. They controlled a lot of the land. They had a lot of government influence. Okay, and again, the church ran a lot in the land. These men did not want that. We talked about Judith a little bit. Now you saw this happen in Ethiopia too, when you see these Ethiopian Christians come in there. Okay, you have these bishops that come in there, and Judith, she's the last one, and Judith is really a Ethiopian priestess title. And so she has this ancient knowledge, and she sees that these men are coming up trying to set up Christianity. She unalived a lot of them because she covertly knew what they were trying to do. And they didn't want to unalive her because she still had a lot of that sacred knowledge that they needed from her. That's why you're seeing Judith being mentioned in the Bible, not because they want to, because they don't have any other choice, because she had a lot of that sacred, again, priestess knowledge. Hey, God, Goddess 314. That's why they're mentioning her. Believe me, they're mentioning these women in the Bible. It's not for any reason. They are gaining something from them. Just like when you go into looking at Socrates, Plato, and all these famous philosophers, you start to learn that they learned everything from these women. They didn't make, they was sitting, they copied all that stuff and wrote it down and got credit for it. But the women, the wise ones, the Sophia women, are the ones who passed that knowledge on to them. They wasn't that smart. Are you kidding me? You think they were that smart? No. Behind every man, believe me, there's a smart ass woman behind him. You look that up, you be like, oh my gosh, they did not learn and they don't give women any of their credit. In fact, they start imprisoning these women. And then they go under the radar as muses as well too. They got you think, oh, they're muses. Yeah, these muses, these were again wise women sharing their knowledge with these men. These men was taking credit for it, taking it from these women. When it, let's be real, same thing when you see a good example of that is the woman who woke Matrix. A woman wrote that. Then no man write that, and then the people try to steal it from her. Okay. They did some stuff wrong and try to steal that from her. But a woman made up come up with that. And what happened? Somebody stole the same thing. Happened with a lot of our spiritual stuff. They even admit this in their cult that they stole a lot of their spiritual practices and watered it down. They admit this. Manly P. Hall talks about that. It tripped him out. This is why they wear them robes and stuff like that when they're doing that ceremonial magic, because it's divine feminine. They have to wear that. That's why they wear that little M, that little apron M across their waist in Freemasonries. They have to wear that because that all of these ceremonies and stuff come from divine feminine. They didn't make that up. Yeah, also in the courts. Yep, they have to wear that. That's why you have Lady Liberty. Who does she represent? A woman. Who that the Lady Justice? Who she represent? A woman. Ain't no man representing that. They let you know what it is right there. Can't no man represent that. He don't have that in him. Gonna be a woman representing that. Ain't gonna be no man representing that. Men can't embody that. Okay, that's why you let that. And this is a patriarch society, but these women are representing these beautiful attributes. No man is representing these attributes. Only women are representing these attributes. And you can look at the book of Judges. What's her name? Deborah. I think is that her name in there? I think she's considered as a judge. But again, pay attention to that evening, fam. Miss Penny, I'm new to the channel. I'm sorry. Like you'll find Michelle Colin. Okay. So again, that's what's going on in there, and they start to again demoralize these women. The Kadesh were not immoral women, but temple initiates set apart for divine service. Biblical passages acknowledges that these temples existed openly and operated alongside early Israelite society. Men are explicitly described as attending them. They went to these temples. Yeah, a lot of these Jews, you see them, go back and read your Bible, you'll have them going to the temple, and I think they mention them by, obscure names, but that's what they're doing. Genesis 38, the story about Judah and Tamar, preserves a striking example. Judah seeks out a Kadesh by the roadside, a Kadesha. And what is Kadesha? Again, she is a divine priestess. He's trying to do a ritual, fully expecting such a woman to be available for the ritual encounter. His behavior is not portrayed as unusual for the time, only later framed as shameful when Tamar subverts patriarchal lineage. The story itself reveals that men participation in these rites was common enough to be unremarkable. So they letting you know right there in that Bible. Go there and read Genesis 38. Go read that with different eyes. Okay? You'll start, it's gonna be make more sense to you once you have this knowledge. You can go in with greater understanding what's going on in your Bible, especially when you include what was going on with these other cultures around them that they claim that was so not better than them. You have the Abrahamic Jews saying that. They need to just cut it out, because in your Kabbalah, you wrote it, Jewish mysticism, because we have that in Hoodoo. We covered that thoroughly. What you're doing, who is the top notch God, who is the huncho, is divine feminine. There is no way around that. He put himself in that. You really don't need him in that. He put himself in that. Don't need him at all. Don't need to go through a man at all. He watered that down and complicated that to help him. But women, you don't need that at all. Many women don't need that at all. Okay. Other texts reference the presence of both female and male temple service attached to shrines, often translated as shrine. I'm going to say this again, shrine prostitutes, though the original language does not support the interpretations. First Kings and Second Kings mention the Kodeshim operating within the land, and sometimes even near or within a presence of Yahwistic worship before religious reforms took hold. So they let you know these temples were everywhere. Only God. Can y'all still hear me out there? He wanted to be the only God. Remember, he's a jealous God. Sound like a man to me. And you hear him kind of say that. Remember, he was very mad at Solomon because Solomon married all those women and he were bound down to their God. Okay? These passages unintentionally confirm that sacred sexual temples were widespread and deeply integrated into society, not fringe or I'm probably going to say this wrong, clandestine. Okay? So they were there. These women had rights. They would go there for different things when it came to their bodies, when it came to treatment, if they needed any herbs or things like that. That temple it served a variety of things, and a lot of men went there again to have these rituals and rites. And how would that look like? Uh, to say that a man would get off, these men they would come into town and they go to a temple, it would sort of look like a massage parlor. You would have all these women dressed like belly dancers and all this erotic attire, and he would choose the service that he want, And so they would get the work on him, whether it is bathing him, massaging him. And if he's paid for a ceremony, they're getting the priestess ready to engage in the ceremony. Okay, so they're massaging him, they're bathing him, they're getting him ready, sanctified, anointing him for the act. Okay, and they're getting ready to raise this energy for her to go in and have the act with him. So it was a whole big process. You would be smelling all sorts of beautiful fragrances. The temple would just be decked out. That's what you would be seeing there. And men, again, there were. This was a high, intense experience. Okay, you wouldn't. What you see now, people go to concerts and all this stuff was done at one temple. I'm trying to get you to understand. The singers, the massagers, the erotic dancers, all of this. This was the arts because they were skilled in the arts. These women were skilled at that. They knew the art of seduction. They knew the art of tantra. They were good vocalists. They knew the art of sound therapy. They knew this. And so men would come there for their services, depending on what they had going on. And a lot of them participated in this tantric rituals. A lot of them participated in that. That was the height of everything. So you'll see that being said. Read your Bible, go back and look at it, because you're going. When you see it, your eyes is just going to get big. I promise you. The repeated biblical instances on banning these practices itself evidence of the popularity. Men, included elites, attended these temples for blessings, fertility, healing, divine favor. These were not secret transgressions, but socially recognized rituals embedded in the original religious life. The furious condemnation found in later texts reflects a political and theological structure rather than a sudden moral awakening. What was being attacked was not promiscuity, but female centered spiritual authority and embodied mysticism. Many of the women who served in these temples lived under the protection of kings. Now, when it started being, when they start cracking down on it, you had some men that were protecting these temples. Some of them were kings, governors, noble families across the ancient Near East. Temple priestess held legal status that placed them outside the control of individual men. There were often wars of temple itself, which functioned as a sovereign institution. This protection is one of the reasons later patriarchal systems found them threatening. A woman who belonged to the goddess could not easily be owned by a husband, father, or king. They didn't like that because why? They wanted access to that land. They wanted access to their security and their money and riches. These women were rich. They were not broke. And they wield a lot of political authority too, because they came in contact with a lot of these governors and kings. Used their services. So it took them a while to do this because, again, these are women with power. What you think that thing what with Medusa was about? What you think that was about? Do you think Mary Magdalene, they have to mention her with Jesus because she was the priestess? He's learning everything from her. Why do you think they said, oh, they were so close, they were best friends? Because she was teaching him. She knew the rights. They're not going to tell you that. They ain't putting her. You think they wanted to mention Mary Magdalene? And then when they did mention her, what did they call her? They call her a prostitute, didn't they? That's letting you know who she is. They try to demoralize her. But she had all the magic. I know that's new to y'all. You don't want to hear that. This is not a popular truth. But honey, they ain't mention that woman in that Bible for nothing. Believe me. They do not want to mention you. They do it because they have no other choice. Alabaster box. I don't know what that is. Okay? Mary Magdalene is the one who had the juice. You go back and you read her story, you find out why they was best friends. Why was he so close to her? She had her own way of spiritual practice, her own grimoire. She already had ancient knowledge. She put perfume on him from her box. Okay. So that's you hear what Elaine Locke said. She put perfume on him from her box. And she was a priestess. She was very well rounded in the spiritual arts. And she taught a lot of things to him. Believe me. She was teaching them something. And I'm sure a lot of the men didn't like that, but they spiritual practice didn't work without her. Okay? It didn't work without her. She was the one dropping out off all the jewels. You don't want to believe that? I know it's hard to believe, but it's true. Historical records from Mesopotamia, Canaan, and the surrounding regions show that templars were major landholders. Okay, economic powers. They own fields, vineyards, herds, workshops, and they redistributed wealth through the ritual and civic life. Because of this, priestesses were often untouchable by common law. Kings did not merely tolerate these women, they relied on them through sacred marriage rites, divination, ritual, sex. Priestesses legitimated political authority. So they gave them political authority. They were the political institution where you see now where these Catholics are, because that they have no, they ain't got that in them. Okay, that's not where they're supposed to be. They stole that from these women. They undermined these women and took that over. Okay, and so these women had all these rights. They had to overthrow that. Through sacred marriage rites, divination, and ritual sex, priests uh, legitimized political authority and ensured the favor of the gods. To harm or to honor them was to risk divine retribution and social instability. Now you have a lot of them being called the Sibyls. The Sibyls, this is no different. It's the same. They're prophetess. These women are seers. They are priestess. A lot of men didn't like that because a lot of stuff they would go to these priestess and prophetess, and they would want to go do stuff to the land, and that these priestess would tell them no, they didn't want that. They got to get rid of them because a lot of these women were tied to the land. And so when these Sibyls, they would go to these Sibyls about going to war and things like that. They will, again, they're channeling this energy. They would tell them the truth. And some of these kings did not want to hear that. A lot of those prophecies that you got going on in that Bible, when they're prophesying over all these countries, these prophecies come from women, not men. They showed them what they were going to do before they even did it. They showed them the results of their consequences before they even did it. That's what you're seeing there. Okay, that's what's going on. The dance, music, and erotic movement performed by these women were central to their roles. Far from being entertainment, these arts were methods of invocation and trance. Movement awakened divine energy in the body, allowing the priestess to serve as a living vessel for the goddess. Poetry and song carried myth, prophecy, and blessings. These women were culture archivists, ritual specialists, and spiritual intermediaries whose influences extended far beyond the bedroom or temple chamber. You see that now. What was that movie called? You see that woman, that robot up there, she was dancing and she had all these men mesmerized. This is the kind of energy that we have. You know, this is why they like going to what they call the strip club, and they like seeing women dance on this pole. This is an old ritual. And what they do when they sit there and they get their money away, because why? He is caught up in her seduction. He's caught up in her seduction. Same thing when they go to these strip clubs. That's what that is as an art. But that would have been in a temple. Now that it turns some into something beautiful, into something ragged and ugly. See how they separated that? See, this is the problem. But any other time they would have went over to the priestess temple and you would have been there, you would have been giving your offering to the gods. You would have been seduced by them and you'd have gave your money for the god. That's how you got your blessings. And yeah, and they demonized the dancers, but if she was in the temple, he would be paying her. And that's another thing too. You say you get these men and they say, "Oh, we man, you been paying." This is what I'm trying to tell you. You've been paying from the beginning. So won't know what you complain about now. You've been paying. You've been paying. You started out paying. What the hell you talking about? You've been paying. You gonna pay to have access to that energy. You gonna give an offering. Let's put it that way. You're gonna give an offering. You ain't gonna get it for free. To contact that's what I understand with some of y'all. I can't afford a woman. These women, and you had some men say, "Hey, you gonna pay either way. Pick one you can afford and shut the hell up." That's what you should do. Cause you go back and look at these temples. It's been set up that way. And every time you're trying to extract money from the divine feminine, you're doing nothing but crossing yourself up as a man. You're 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 interrupting the divine natural flow of things because you ain't even supposed to have that. Okay, you got some of these men now. I want to be a baddie. I want to be in my soft life. No, you need to go sit down somewhere and think about who you are because you don't know who you are. You supposed to be the best parts of us. Now you want to be us, but this is how all got started because of your jealous nature. You won't play. You won't stay in your position. This is another reason why I tell women when you get your power back, and you will, because the way it's set up now, if they don't get in line, Bobby Hemmett tried to explain this to you. If you do not get back in your position where you're supposed to be, you're going to self destruct. Okay? You're going to self destruct if you don't get in your place where you're supposed to be. You don't get nowhere and sit down. Stop trying to, your time is over. It's time to sit down. That's all that's going to happen there. You think you're going to be, you think you're out here and you're making a fool of these women and you think you're getting away with some. No, you're not. I'm telling you that now. I'm telling you that now. It's not going to turn out good for you. Okay? It ain't going to turn, you don't understand that. Then y'all think this cool what you're doing raggedy stuff with these women, but you're going to end up messing yourself up. That's all you going to do. And I'm telling you this from a spiritual perspective. It seems so good now because you get temporary gratification, but there's no substance to it. You ain't doing nothing but running yourself down raggedy. That's all you doing. And that this something your dad ain't talked to you about. Maybe your mama try to give you some sense, but I'm trying to tell you, that's not gonna turn out good for you. Because if you're doing women like that, you are again, it's a crime against the divine. I don't care what you see. A lot of these men have gotten used to this type of misogynistic ideology, but it is not correct. The same thing, like people got to unpack this racism, y'all got to unpack that misogyny. I'm not saying it's your fault. I'm sorry that happened to you, but it is your responsibility to fix it, to relearn, to get that out your head. Yes, we got a lot of work to do, and I'm not saying it's your fault. And I'm so sorry that was passed down to you like that, that you have this, crazy ideology in your head. But now that you know the truth, you can change it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not bashing anyone, but it can be corrected. And women, we have healing to do too. Because if we got to be a leader, you know, we can't be codependent. You can't let him lead. He can't lead. He doesn't know how. Okay, the man doesn't give birth to children. Why would you think he can lead a house? Okay, he can't do it. So don't he's an enforcer. He's an enforcer. He is not a leader. He can follow directions. He is not a leader. He tries, but he can't. Okay, it's like giving a child a weapon and they've never been trained on how to use it. He doesn't know what he's doing. He can try. The only thing they can do is try to pump each other, brainwash each other that they're doing a good job, even when they're doing regular stuff. Look at the man over there now. Now you know darn well that man doing regular stuff. Why don't y'all sit that man down? But no, you want to go through all these changes and vote on this and all that. No. Grab him and sit his ass down. That's simple. Sit him down. Shut him up. Because you best believe if it was a woman doing that, she would have seized him and shut him up and set him down. It wouldn't have been no voting about it. You did this, you're doing this, sit down and shut up. You won't be pushing no buttons and taking over stuff. Now you'll be trying to take care of your country and feed your country and mind your business instead of other people's business and fix this over here. That's what happened when you put a man in charge of a country that don't know how to run a house. If he don't know how to run a house, he's never raised his children. He doesn't. Why would you think he can run it just doesn't make sense to me. You see the craziness? You see the craziness? And no, I don't care what color man you put in there. Their XY chromosome, their genes are inferior. It's not his fault. I'm not saying it's his fault. But he's tried. He can't do it. Who's running home? Single mothers are raised. Who's doing it? He's not doing. Not many of them are doing that. Is all of them like that? No. But it's time for them to sit down. You had your chance. We'd have tried many. We'd have tried the black ones, the white. It doesn't matter. Y'all just do raggedy stuff. You got something going on with you. You need to sit down. We know you're not built for that. You're not built for that. Okay? I'm so sorry. I have to say that. But you're not. You look at your numbers. Look at your numbers. Okay? Every time y'all get into something, it just don't look, just sit down. We don't even belong in a house all day long like a woman. We need to be out in nature. Nature is our house. Yeah. He's supposed to be out there chopping wood, building house. Those are the things that he's good at. Not doing intelligent. I don't know who. They're not smart. They're not smart. Okay. Everything they learn from us. We're their first teacher. We educate them. Okay. They're not smarter than women. Women, you're born with the divine blueprint in you. Everything, all the chromosome, everything is in you. He only has a portion of what you have. So what makes you think that he's smarter than you? Surely it's not testosterone because that is the thing that makes them some of them crazy. They don't even trust each other. Okay? So I have to put it to you like that. I have and I'm not trying to bash men, but I'm again giving you insight on your nature so you'll see your nature because some of you don't even trust other men because you know what other men are capable of. That's why you don't trust them because you know something is flawed with a lot of them. Y'all don't trust no other man around your woman, around your sister, around your mother. Y'all don't trust other men. You don't trust each other. Okay, you'll trust a woman before you trust a man. That ought to tell you something right there. And I'm done with that. Let me move on. Similar structures appear in ancient tantric traditions, where sexual union was sacrament and the feminine principle, Shakti, was the active force of liberation. As in the Near East, these practices were later split into symbolic ascetic forms. While embodied sexual rites were suppressed or driven underground, the same pattern appears in Egypt. You'll see those rites in Egypt. Sexuality was an integral to creation myths and resurrection rituals. Most notably, the story of Isis reviving Osiris through sexual magic. You seeing it there? Who's doing the first sex magic? Who's doing it first? Her. She's doing it first. She's bringing him. She's making him rise from the dead. They let. That's a whole sacred ritual right there that she's doing. That's the first time you're seeing sex magic when she had to bring Osiris back to life. Remember, she hoovered over him and brought him back to life. The same pattern. Okay, I read that. Osiris through sexual magic. Priestess of Hathor and Isis use erotic joy, music, and dance as healing forces, reinforcing the sacredness of pleasure and embodiment. No, I don't think masculine and feminine is. It's not. I agree with you, time shifting army. Uh, the time shifting army said, "I truly believe in a balance because masculine and feminine do not mean people at all. No, it does not mean that. Men did that. You have them trying to label this energy coming in, stealing our metaphysical sciences, renaming it and putting themselves in it. That's why you have astrology like that. Men have identified themselves with the sun. Sir, you have no cosmology from that. Let's just stop it. The divine intelligence comes from the divine feminine. So he associated himself with the sun and associated women with the moon. Now, there's even been stories that, you know, that the what is that? The sun comes either from the moon or Earth. It's not. It was created by one of those. It's even said that it was created by the Earth or the moon. But they have attached them because we were already had our cosmogenetic link uh to the moon. We already had that mapped out. We even had these little moon sticks where we keep up with our cycle. We the one mapped out the agriculture system. That's why you'll have agriculture again linked up with the moon. We're following the moon. There's nothing in the almanac where they're just following the sun like that. The sun is just out again to heat up things and to bring light and so it can grow. But the real magic happens in the dark. Okay. You're going to see that repeatedly. And so you see them in astrology, and they even messed up Western astrology doing this because they had to eliminate a zodiac sign doing this. Okay. Tying themselves to the sun. We talked about this. This is why we had to look at Vedic astrology and why our ancestors was looking at Vedic astrology. Because you'll see Hinduism go up into Hoodoo as well, and you see a lot of our ancestors were using Vedic astrology. Trip me out. You'll see Hinduism in Voodoo. You're going to see it in Obia. You're going to see it in Ifa as well. Yeah. And so it started making sense. I said, this is why they were using, why wouldn't they use Vedic astrology? Because they're using this as well. But Hinduism has the most recent it has the most accurate information when it comes to astrology and when it comes to the moon. And that's something Western astrology took out of their uh they took out because they're following the sun. And it's more important to follow the moon because the moon again rules the mind. The sun does not. It only shows you a map of your soul, but to understand how your mind works, how your subconscious work, you have to look at that moon, because that's what that again, the moon rules the mind. I hope that makes sense. Okay. The eventual destruction of these temples and demonization of the priestess coincided with the rise of patriarchal monotheism. Goddess worship was reframed as idolatry, sacred sexuality as a sin. They made that a sin. They told you your body was ugly. They told you what came from your body was unclean. They told you that there was, and these were sacred rites. And you see a lot of that stuff started to be a little bit preserved with some of the midwives and root workers and witches. We knew some of that. So you see a lot of it going underground. A lot of our mothers trying to uh, preserve it when all this comes. And so you'll get it get caught up in folk magic and things like that. But this is the real knowledge that women were still trying to keep, even when these patriarchs were saying that it was wrong. Okay, you still had midwives, you still had root workers across every culture, and they were trying to stamp that out because women were still making medicine, we were still healing, we were still doing some of the same things that we would have done in the temple had we had our own rights. Okay, and I go over that again. They stumped that out when they came out with these men doctors and all that stuff, but it used to be majority women that were, you know, were doing a lot of healing work, especially when it came to delivering babies. Women had that knowledge. Okay. um Goddess worship was reframed as idolatry, sacred sexuality as sin, and consecrated women as harlots. This was not merely a religious shift, but a restructuring of power. Female autonomy, land ownership, spiritual authority had to be dismantled in order to establish male dominated hierarchies. The biblical polemics against Quadesha and their temples are best understood as a spiritual warfare against an older, deeply rooted religious system. Okay. So glad I experienced watching my grandma practice. Yes, because it is divine feminine. You'll see that in hoodoo as well. Even when you go through hoodoo, uh, if you're doing your work like you should and talking to your ancestors, and for me, uh, what comes through for me, a lot of the workings that have been shown to me, it's been by older women. It's been by older ancestors, older women ancestors. There's been a lot of older women ancestors that I work with when it comes to showing me different types of workings. They come through just as clear. I don't know how it works for everybody. I heard another practitioner say the same thing. She said these older women come through for her too when they're trying to show her something, and that's been my experience. And it's automatically come back to you. Okay, use these, and the hoodoo again is feminine. We show you that when we go through these books, especially working the roots. What was the other one? Working the roots and mojo working, they're letting you know right from the get-go that a lot of these spiritual practices are coming from women, and women are passing these practices on to their sons and their daughters and their family. It is familiar. Now, will it look the same? Will hoodoo look the same with everybody? No, it may look different. That's why you got some people fighting on, you know, I don't do that. I don't. You probably don't because your ancestors do their magic a different way. This is why I tell you when you get in our community, I don't. I'm not gonna show you no spell. That's not what you need. Your ancestors gonna show you that. You don't need anybody showing you anything because they know how they want you to do it. You need to get structure and discipline and develop relationship. That's what you need to do. Learning protection, healing, and cleansing, and develop a relationship with your ancestors. That's all. That needs to go on probably for a couple of months before you think about picking up something. And when you do, you need to be going to them. And I know if you're doing it right, because some of you will come to me and you'll start explaining to me why you're getting ready to do something. And usually when you're telling me this, You you're gonna lead. Most of you lead with my ancestors told me to do it like this, and you're ready for me, to try to give you something different from them. No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna tell you to do what they ask you to do. Okay, and it's gonna work. That's when you start finding out. Wow, my ancestors is teaching me hoodoo. Yeah, because that's usually how it happens. They step putting you instead of watching somebody else, because these people that's showing you this is something that their ancestors told them, and this is the way they work their ancestral magic. This not even may not even be the way that your ancestors want you to do their magic. They know what elements and things they want you to work with. And usually if you come to me before you even do that, I usually give you an indication of that. If I break down your natal chart, I can give you a better insight of what elements that you need to be doing and what work you need to be doing. Because what somebody else using for a remedy for their problem, that's probably not the remedy that you need. You're two different people, and the magic may look different. Okay, yeah, okay, I understand that time shifting army. And so again, it may look different. That's why I don't recommend people show you anything, because once you're it can throw you off. Okay? Because your ancestors gonna show you something, it's gonna confuse you. Because you doing something somebody else told you doing, your ancestors got you doing something totally different. And it worked. It worked. I know when I know if you're doing the work, because when you start telling me what you're gonna do, it's not gonna sound like nobody else's work. I can tell when the ancestors telling you to do something, because it's not gonna look or sound like nobody else's work. Okay. Now, do we expose you to different workings and stuff in there? Absolutely. We give you a template on how that work should look, how your herbs, what herbs you should be used, what herbs mean what and what work. Yeah, you should be educated on that. But far as putting the work together, we should be spiritually advised on that to ensure we're going to have good results. That's what needs to be going there. And I know people mean well by showing you different things. I think that's absolutely great. But you're not following your ancestors, you're following a person. Your ancestors did not tell you to do that. They did not give you consent to do that. So you don't know if that's going to work or not, because you did not do a divination and ask your ancestors on how to move forward, or if you even needed to do that work. Okay, you get yourself crossed up like that because again, I, the idea is to get you slowed down, stop following people, because that's what be messing a lot of us up, and get you to talking to your ancestors and listen to their guidance and get, because these eyes will fool you. Okay, I got to keep saying that. I got to get you to initiate in communication and relationship with your ancestors and stop looking at people. That's how you're going to get into your magic. A person ain't going to show you. I have to say that so many times. I get people so caught up in trying to get stuff from people, instead of your ancestors got the most powerful magic than a person can show you. So ain't that what we want? Don't we want our stuff to work? Don't we want to learn something on our own with our ancestors and have our own book or whatever grimoire? We can record this stuff so we can pass it down. It's ours. It's got our tag on it. We know how to work it. Our ancestors have showed us how to put it together. That's what we want. Is it supposed to look like somebody else's? No. Okay. It may look pretty and everything to you, but them people's not telling you they working with a spirit. They ancestors showed them that they're working with an angel, a saint, a spirit. Most time that's what's going on. And I highly recommend it when you first start doing your work to shift again, because you're gonna need a little help when you first start off until you can get yourself balanced and fully healed and get your ashay up. They're going to be teaching you this. most elevated ancestors, these archangels, and these saints. They're going to be teaching you that. You're going to need a little assistance depending on what you got going on with your energy. And that's how it should be, helping you develop these relationships to refine yourself, heal yourself, so you can get better at your magic. You won't always need to call on your ancestors or your angels or your saints all the time. They're going to show you enough work where you can start doing things on your own. That's what needs to happen. But these spirits love to see consistency. They love for you to be on time for your rituals and all of that. You see a lot of people on here, and I've seen a lot that come here and show you something. Well, there's a time for them to do this. They can't do this tomorrow. There's different energies available to help them in this working. You know, you might get lucky and can do it sporadic sometimes, but for the most of it, it needs to be planned out if you want to see success and results in it. See, a lot of this context is, it's not being given to you, being shown something, and you don't understand the practice. So I have to say that because I see it going on so much. The Bible does not erase the history, it preserves it in fragments, often unintentionally through efforts of suppressing it. So you will see the Kodesh temples going on. You'll see a little bit of sex magic going on in that Bible. You dismiss it because you don't really understand, because they're changing the words. So you don't understand what they're saying. So you will miss that in the Bible. Seen this way, sacred sexual temples were not a deviation from the spiritual life, but its original form. They remind us that pleasure once a prayer, and the body once was a holy site, and the divine feminine once stood at the heart of human civilization. Now, see, you'll see in the book two, Sacred Sex, they'll talk about the Empress sex type. And I remember we went through this we were going through our tarot. And I remember one of the practitioners said, "Well, I look at the strength card, and it's a card of lust." And I was like, "I don't see that in that card." Now I seen that in the Knight of Wands or the Knight of Fire or the King of Wands. You can see that with the Empress too, because the Empress has the kind of like that, that sexual energy as well. But it talks about this in the book. The Empress, the archetype that opens up the door for erotic potential, as the corresponding major arcana card for the planet accompanying the energy of Venus. The Empress represents pleasure, fertility, sensuality, creativity, sexuality, and love. She is an invitation into the senses, and even though the Empress is depicted as a woman, it doesn't mean her energy is gendered. The Empress is the way in which the energy of sexual sensual expression, embodied love and enjoyment, can come to fruition. She acts as a guardian and a gateway to sacred sexuality because she is sacred sexuality. So you'll see in your book you can use her as an archetype in path working to access this energy within ourselves. Okay. And so again, the book goes on to talk about having safe sex. Make sure that you are protecting yourself. Okay. Cleansing yourself of any negative, heavy energies before you even engage in the act. Making sure, you're going in with the purest intentions as well. Okay, because it's a very spiritual experience. Sex is a very spiritual experience. It's more than just pleasure and getting off your rocks. It's something very sacred. It means keeping an honest and open spirit, ready to show up fully in your power. Safe spiritual sex also can mean things like enchanting your contraceptives or your birth controls for extra protection. It means connecting again with your higher power, your guardian angel, or your spirit guides. And if you go into the book of sexual magic, and you listen to Pascal Randolph, he goes as far, because I say this is important, is is making your own horoscope sense, anointing yourself with oil. He goes into the different lighting that should be used, the different days and times that you should be engaged in sex magic where you'll get the best results. I mean, he just goes into so many details. What color the room should be, what incense to burn. So he goes into really big detail, and again, he's given this knowledge to to the occult organizations because again they're trying to open up and access more knowledge. They're trying to experience a higher ascension in their spiritual practice. And here he comes, Pascal Randolph. He comes in and he introduces all of this because they had no access to this. I think this is the smoking gun right there to all of us. Where did he get this at? Okay. Before Randolph, sex appeared in myth, fertility rites, and religious symbolism. Sexual imagery existed in Tantra, Taoism, ancient temple traditions. So we knew all this stuff existed before Pascal Randolph came on the scene. All of this existed, but none of these were presented in Western public as a practical occult technology in the way Randolph did it. Where did he get it from? He got it from, roll the drum, please. He got it from the Haitian voodoo. They preserved their sexual rights. He took this sexual right. It tells you right there in the book Sex Magic where he got it from. Because the Europeans had lost their knowledge through that witch hunt, unaliving all these women and stuff. And so a lot of that stuff had to go underground. But all the voodoo priestess, they had that knowledge. It's very prominent. We had that knowledge. And what did he do? And I think that they helped him, if I'm not mistaken, in the book, they talk about uh, how Pascal Randolph had to collaborate with another voodoo priest to develop that ritual for the occult. Yeah, it comes from us. That's why I tell you everything they have in this occult, it comes from us. I always have to go back to ancient Egypt and show you. I have to go back and show you these again ancient spiritual practices. Even when you look at hoodoo, I have to take you there so I can show you how old it is. Hoodoo is very, very older. It's older than 1800, 1600. This is familiar magic. This is ancestral magic. So it's a lot older. It's just that other people start noticing when we did it and then start trying to lay claims to it. But it's very old. Like I said, we didn't call it that. You have other people calling it that. So that's where he got it from. Okay? That's why historians consistently credit him as the originator of modern Western sex magic, even when acknowledging earlier global traditions. Important nuance: he did not invent sex magic itself. Randolph himself claimed his knowledge came from Egyptian initiatory traditions, Middle Eastern esoteric schools, possibly tantric and Afro-Asiatic sexual mysticism. In other words, he was a transmitter, not the source. But in the book, he lets you know right off the back. You can go read his book because you have that. If you're in our Conjure membership or Know Thyself membership, you got the his book. Okay, you got his book, and you know in that book he's telling you exactly where he got that from. He's letting you know. He's letting you know in the book. Hey, they lost their knowledge of this sort of magic, and then when he gives it to them, I gotta say he tried to be responsible in providing this information to them. He told them that this was not to be corrupted. That's why you'll have a left hand and a right hand path of tantric magic. And so the way you're seeing the Tantra being used now is when it got in the patriarch hands, and now you have what these graphic images they have now. Okay, corn. I'm trying to keep PG for you. Okay, you have all this stuff going on now. This demoralizing women. The way they do now, it was never meant to be done that way. Okay, and I can say in when he was giving this knowledge to uh providing this knowledge to them, he was very clear about how the divine feminine need to be honored at all time to get the best results out of it. So he gave that to them in its purest form. They took it, and now they have corrupted it and tainted it, and now they're using it for nefarious purposes. And now we got, you know, folks, they've been doing stuff too. Got a whole PDF file on this. Had a whole island where they was corrupting these arts. Okay, they even do this in temples too. They'll corrupt the arts in temples where they have went in and they these people call it satanic ritual abuse. That they did that and tainted that. But it was something beautiful at first that we understood the arts of it and it belonged to women. But once it got in the hands of men in their organizations, they tainted that. And now they using it in nefarious ways with sodomy and all this other stuff. It was not to be done that way. So now you're looking at a tainted form of it. Um, when we're seeing all this, the abuse that goes on today, and they have pushed it up on. They get it. Seem like they're again getting a kick out of doing it on children, taking their innocence, getting their soul energy. They've used it to try to get people's soul energy. They have not used it to, better anything into bringing these lower dimensional beings. That's what they're using it for. They're opening it up to bring in lower dimensional beings. I hope that made sense. Sex magic exists long before him in ancient Egypt temple rites, tantric Hindu and Buddhist tradition, towards sexual alchemy, and again, in sacred priestess, because they're using the word prostitution here. I don't like that. And other rituals. So this is a long held practice. And again, this was done. This was done in the ancient world. It was not separate. It was all put together. Sexuality was not different from spirituality. Sexuality itself is a divine feminine act in itself. Women are supposed to be leading in that. Men are not supposed to be leading in that. Women are supposed to be teaching men what feels good to them. And now, what they have going on now, I don't see anything wrong with it. It is corrupt. Okay, they want to tell you what feels good to them. No, it don't go like that. Okay, in order for him to get the benefits of the act, he needs to be trying to make you feel good as possible. Okay, because the more you go in there thinking about just yourself and getting your rocks off, you ain't getting nothing out of that. That's not going nowhere. That wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and you just leave her out, hang to dry. You're just messing yourself up. You wasted everybody time with that. Okay, that's the plainest I could put. I try to make this as PG as possible because YouTube was giving me a lot of havoc about this video. I didn't think I was going to be able to come here and talk about it, but I was able to come back and talk about it fully here with you. And if you're in our community, you got more details than this because you were able to see the graphics that I showed you about how that looks when you engage in that practice and the power of it if you know what you're doing. So you got a chance to look at all the visuals there because I was able to put visuals there I'm not able to put here. So if you're in our community, you got great a great example of that and great info on how that looks. Okay, I'm just giving you more insight, and I think it's more important to understand in the book as well is that uh and that book the book that everyone got, Sacred Sex, that I had to come back. I didn't like the way they were talking about that. And I'm like, you left out where this came from. And then you're making it, I just felt like they were running with it from the occultist point of view and not really giving you a good foundation of where it come from and how beautiful it is. Okay. And so that's why I felt like I needed to come here and give more insight on both of the books so you will understand where it come from because Pascal Randolph did not invent that. He got that from again a voodoo priestess. They gave him the rights because the Europeans had lost their rights. Okay, they had lost their ritual rights to this sort of magic. But we, the voodoo, the people, we still had that knowledge and we were able to bring that in there to help them develop their occult practices. Okay. And later, Pascal Randolph, I think he was unalived by Madame Blavatsky because it's saying she was doing black curses on him. And see, they were trying to steal a lot of that man's knowledge. They were very jealous of Pascal Randolph because he was getting all this insight. He had perfected spiritism. Because see, these people didn't know nothing about spiritism or seances or anything like that until they met Pascal Randolph. This is why I tell y'all, when you get over there, I don't know why you scared of spirit because that's all our ancestors did was talk to spirits. I don't understand it. And so since he had this was in his bloodline, I'm sure, because he was a man of color. And many of us have a close relationship with spirits, our ancestors. And so he came in and he was showing them all of this knowledge. And Madame Blavatsky had it out for him, and a lot of them he would not share a lot of the things that the spirits were sharing with him, his spiritual technology. He wasn't sharing a lot of that with them, and they wanted to get their hands on that. So the story is Madame Blavatsky was doing a lot of black magic on him, and they say that he unalived himself uh, in the head with the gun. I don't believe that. I think somebody else did that. Uh, because for where it sounded like she had been doing that work for a minute. And if he was that good at his craft, I'm sure he was able to, circumvent that. That didn't have any effect on him. I'm thinking that they actually hired somebody to do that to him because they said when he was unalived, his whole room was ramshacked, papers and stuff was everywhere. So they was looking for something. Okay. So his life was really cut short. And again, this is what happens when you get over there with those people. You don't look like them and you're trying to mess with them and show them stuff. This is why it's closed. That's why Hoodoo is closed. And you'll get over there. There's some things in our community that I've shared there about love work that you didn't know there was love work that I've shared there in our community. So make sure that you're reading those articles because I'm not going to share it here because it's private, it's closed. I can't share it. So make sure that you're reading over those articles because you're getting inside information on how we use this magic and how we can use it, how it shows up for us every day, and how you was looking at love magic and you didn't even know you were looking at a love spell. Okay, because they did it uh, in a covert way. You'll pass it and then know you were looking at it. And that's why we were doing hoodoo, and we didn't know we was doing hoodoo, but we was doing hoodoo the whole time. And you'll see that too in some of the way we did some of our love spells. You never knew it was a love spell, but it was a love spell the whole time. Okay, it was some type of love working that they were doing. Does anyone have any questions? Because we covered a lot here. We got a chance to really break that down, and let you know where a lot of that came from. You got a chance to look at, sex magic, uh, and really understand where it come from. Now, the mechanism of it, if you're going to practice this, I would say a good idea is to practice this solo. Do this solo is first. Set up your ritual, and I think this is a good thing if you work in adult entertainment, and if you want to take your power back. Uh, Again, this is a great way to do it. Okay, this is a great way to do it, to take back your power, especially that sensual energy, because you have a lot of people that try to make women feel bad because we carry this sensual energy. But you can take your power back. This is a good way to take your power back, your sensuality, your seduction, uh, and take that power back and have it work for you. Now you have a lot of people doing this through uh, mermaid work and things like that. That's a good way to address it as well. But you can take back your power this way. Your work can still be done this way and keep your magic still sacred. Okay. Anyone has any questions? I see some questions coming in here. Uh, and again, if you want to know what's in your chart, you know what to do. You can DM me or email me if you want a natal chart reading and you want to know what kind of magic. Hey, Gerald. And if you want to know what kind of magic you should be participating in, or if you're trying to get in alignment, and you don't know what you should be doing in hoodoo, I think our natal charts provide good insight and information when it comes to that. Okay. I give people that chart, and it gives them, they have a working base uh, to start their work on. They can ease themselves in their work and get in alignment with their natal chart. So I think that comes in handy for that. If that's something that you're looking for, we certainly have that. If you're looking for a hoodoo community where we talk about hoodoo as a whole, not just spells, we teach you, give you a really good foundation, ancestor veneration, shadow work, protection, cleansing. We give you a good foundation first before throwing you out there, before you start picking up things, to help you really understand the practice before you start doing the magic. Because that's what hangs a lot of people up. You're doing the spell, but you don't really know how the components work in that spell. You're doing something somebody showed you. Until you sit down and understand the practice, you're not going to real feel comfortable with putting things together yourself until you understand the practice. And what better way to perfect your magic, or what anything that you're doing, is when you understand the practice. Okay. Who else is asking me a questions? Any questions about this? I'm asking, but I know who do you. Okay. So what about, so that why some is so powerful? Because David learned from women. Like I said, this the Psalms is very old. These are very old rituals. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, when I was reading this, I think those Psalms even go back to ancient Egypt. Even with those rituals, the bathing rituals and stuff, when you're looking at the Jews, get this information, because they tend to have that information. And what I'm understanding is they got this, the Psalms, they didn't even write them. These are women that's writing these rites and remedies when someone was sick, or they had something going on. These were okay, I'll get it later, Allura. These are women who put that together. So Psalms are a lot older than that. You have these men that put this book together because they stole all the ancient knowledge from these spiritual women. You'll see that with Islam too. Okay, you'll see that with Islam. Allah was called Alat. There was a divine feminine spiritual practice until Muhammad came up in there and changed that and forced this way up in that and made that patriarchal. Okay. And you'll see that done across the globe. You'll see that also in Hinduism. But what I like about Hinduism as well is they kept a lot of goddesses in there. That's kept a lot of divine feminine elements in there. In fact, I don't know if I mentioned this or not. If you go into uh, looking at the mansions of the moon, and a lot of people sleep on that, but I mentioned it in our community. If you go in and look at the mansions of the moon, there's also angels of each mansion of the moon. And most of the angels that are represent the moon, they're divine feminine. And I've posted in our community 2 or 3 times. And it's also in our angel book as well. They talk about the mansions of the moon. You can really elevate your work if you understand the mansions of the moon and start working with some of those angels that's over those mansions. Okay, so I posted it in there 2 or 3 times. So I think it's it's good to work with the moon, but what spirit are you going to work with over that moon? Are you friends with any spirits that are moon that's represented by the moon? Okay, I think that's very important. And a lot of the who preserved that knowledge, a lot of the Arabs and the Asians preserved a lot of the moon knowledge. Okay, a lot of the knowledge you're going to get in the Western Hemisphere is really going to be like solar knowledge. But if you want to learn more about how to work with the moon successfully, I would say look at Vedic astrology, look at the mansions of the moon, and look at what they wrote down. And I think that would put, uh, you know, that would give you more variety and options on how to do your work. You're gonna understand it even better. That's why our ancestors was following the moon. So don't sleep on those spirits as well when it comes to the mansions of the moon. And we went over that maybe 2 or 3 times that I want you to fully understand that. And we go through that in our angel book as well. In our angel book, Working Magic with Angels, she talks about that clearly about working with these moon angels and how they can help you. And you even get a book breakdown with each spirit of the moon and how to work with them. And of course, in Vedic astrology, it's wonderful because they give you it's all embedded in their astrology. All that is embedded in their astrology. Versus Western astrology, I take your natal chart and then I bring that on out. I include the moon. I include all that stuff to give you uh, a accurate result for your natal chart. So I include that if that's something that you're interested in. But get over there. If you're not in our community, get over there. We just covered that thoroughly. Hopefully, I don't have to cover this again. It's pretty straight to the point. Both of the books, the one by Pascal Randolph and this other one, Sacred Sex, is pretty much straight to the point. Now, the Sacred Sex book is more of a initial. It is a how-to guidebook on how to do everything. It tells you a little. It gives you a description of what it is, and then it goes going right on in, giving you instructions and guidelines of how to go ahead and implement that. If that's something that you're interested in. And I do recommend I don't judge if you're in like I said, if you're trying to take your power back and if you're in a situation where you feel like you're losing power in that way, I do recommend that book. There's no judgment over here in Hoodoo. Okay? I understand. Anyone else got any questions? I'm trying to see if I missed any questions. No more questions? Okay, Miss Penny, what are the books again? Okay, what was this book? Let me see if I can find it. It's in this other one. Let me see if I can find it over here. Give me just a moment. My stuff moving slow. Okay, so what was the name of this book, you guys? It is called Sacred Sex: The Magic Path of Divine Erotica. And the book by Pascal Randolph, I think it's just called Sex Magic. Yeah, it's just called Sex Magic. And that is a good book too. Sex Magic is a good book too by Pascal Randolph. I love the way he sets it up. He's very thorough, even with the horoscope, with the scents and things you should be mixing, the colors that you should be putting together, the moon that you should be using for particular things. He's very thorough in that book. I like the way he put it together. However, I just think in the book, he's not. It should have been more inclusion of the woman because the woman is looking more like an object. She's not looking like, hey, I'm participating in this with you too. It sort of looked like she's covertly there. She's not actually there, and I think to me that's what made it more open to be corrupted when he addressed it like that. I think it should have been more inclusion with her because he's just making it look like, oh, she's there only for the ritual. She's only there for me. She's only there for me. So that's how it looked instead of we're there for both of each other. So that's what I didn't like about that book. I mean, that's the way I didn't like the way he wrote that, but he gave some really good information and insight. Okay. All right. Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed this presentation and this review of the book and that it gave you better insight of what we talked about. And of course, if you're in the community, I like that I was able to show you guys that visuals. I think the visuals and being able to show you the video of what was going on, I think that that really help you. I was because I was shooting for something to give you visuals about it. So let me ask you this: who here that's in our community who was able to watch the video? Is anybody here in here now that were able to watch the full video lecture presentation that I provided? Were you able to see everything? I'll give you a minute to answer here because I try to give you visuals in there. Who saw the video? Who in there saw the video, the breakdown of the video in there? I think that's a better description because I can't show that here because that would shut me down if I show that here. Were you able to see that? Anyone? Okay, I guess no one is in here in our community that saw it. I recommend if you have not seen that, I recommend that you go see the video. It'll start to make sense what I said here. It'll all come together for you. Okay. All right, you guys. Love you, and I'll see you again. And our healing group, I'll be sending out a poll to you guys to meet soon. Okay. Love you guys. Take care.